الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة صدق الله العظيم. Dear respected brothers, sisters, young ones, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We begin with the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, and we send our salutations upon the coolness of our eyes, our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Inshallah, in the next 1 hour plus or so, we'll be going through understanding zakah. The format is, inshallah, we shall discuss what is zakat, the definition, the concept, why does zakat even matter, what are the conditions for zakat, who must pay for it, what is nisab? What does the term nisab mean? How do we calculate zakat? What assets are subject to zakat? Cash, savings, gold and silver, business inventory, investment, shares, pensions. And inshallah we'll divide this presentation into two. So I'll deliver the first half, and inshallah Mufti Muadh will deliver the second half. And then finally we'll conclude with who is entitled and eligible to receive zakah. Before we start, here will be the masail and the rulings of zakah as according to the Hanafi school of thought. There may be differences amongst different schools, so if someone adheres to a different school, obviously they will contact their scholar, read their own books, and then will calculate their zakat accordingly. All these masail as according to the Hanafi school of thought. So bismillah, let's fire away. What is zakah? In Arabic, the word zakah or zakka, yuzakki, tazkiyah means to purify. Pak karna. Purification. We are purifying the rest of our wealth by giving 2.5% in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحْ. There's attachment, greed of wealth in our hearts. So we are purifying our souls by detaching our hearts and ourselves from those things which are beloved to us. And we're giving some of this money for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to purify our souls. Zakah can also mean growth. Although I give some charity and I give zakah, apparently my bank balance is decreasing. But in fact, وَيُرْبِ الصَّدَقَاتِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is multiplying and growing that wealth. And insha'Allah, it is the investment for the hereafter. Blessing. By giving zakah and spending in the path of Allah, we are drawing the blessings, the barakat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Righteousness, praise. It's the third pillar of Islam, and at least 28 times in the Quran Allah mentions salah and zakah together. Aqimu salah wa atu zakah. Ke namaz ko qaim karo, zakat ko ada karo. Establish salah and give zakah. Establish salah and give zakah. This is one of the salient features of a believer. So we've discussed what it means literally. We've discussed somewhat. It's a pillar of Islam. Now what does it mean technically to give zakah? It's to pay a fixed percentage of particular wealth to deserving poor. A fixed percentage is generally 2.5%. Let's assume you have 1,000 pounds. To give 2.5% of the 1,000 pounds of particular wealth. You do not need to give zakat on the car that you're driving, on the house you're residing in, the clothes that you are wearing, the laptop, the computer, the devices that you're using. So what exactly is zakat on then? Inshallah, you will soon know in the next few slides. So zakah is to pay a fixed percentage, for example 2.5% of particular wealth. So zakah isn't on our clothes that we're wearing and the cars and the homes, rather on the cash, gold, silver, business assets. What do you call business assets? Inshallah, that'll also be revealed soon. To deserving poor. Who are the deserving poor? And there's obviously much more information. I have a poor auntie or uncle or nephew or brother or father or son. Is it permissible to give such recipients? Inshallah, that will also be discussed. These things are always an issue, eh? Although we should be able to work this out. Yep. So who must pay zakat? These are the conditions. Muslim, adult, sane, wealthy. If anyone ticks all these 4 categories, zakat is compulsory. If any one of these categories are missing, zakat is not compulsory. Obviously, a person must be a Muslim. Secondly, an adult. So as according to the Hanafi school of thought, even if a 5, 6, 7-year-old child has thousands in his or her bank account, they're not required to give any zakat. Because they have not reached maturity, bulugh, adulthood. They're not yet 14, 15 years old or so. There may be savings. Many a times parents may have a special account dedicated to the child. And that account may hold 5,000, 10,000 pounds. They are not required to give zakah. However, we must note there's a difference. You may have put aside some money for your son or daughter when he grows up, then this will contribute towards their house. But you've not transferred it into their ownership. So it's still in your name. It still belongs to you. You still have control and management of how you want to use it. Then that will not be attributed to the child. That still belongs to you. Yes, it's a hope, it's a promise that you will spend it on them. Then you will have to include it in your zakat calculation. However, if you've transferred it into the ownership, now you don't control or manage it anymore. You don't use from it anymore. It now belongs to them. Then it will be assumed that they are the owners, so they are not required to give zakat until they're not mature, have not reached adulthood. And inshallah, even after this, if there are some questions, by all means we are ready to respond. Sane, sanity. Many of these laws in Sharia do not oblige a majnoon, an insane person. They are not held responsible. And lastly is wealthy. What do I mean by wealthy? Inshallah, again in the next slide, we'll discuss. Wealthy doesn't mean that you've got hundreds and thousands in your bank account. What wealthy means in Sharia is if you have equivalent to the nisab or above. What does that mean? Inshallah, again discussed. So again, these 4 categories are for us. Do I tick any of them? Muslim, alhamdulillah. Adulthood, yes. Sane, sanity, yes. Am I wealthy? Let's link into it, inshallah. Now, how are you considered wealthy? Mardar. So nisab is the threshold, the minimum. If a person owns, then in Sharia they are considered as wealthy. Now, alhamdulillah, many of our elders will be listening in and they will have known that we say Sare Saat Tola, the Sona gold, or Sare Bawan Tola Chandi. So either you calculate in tolas or grams. If you assume tolas, then 7.5 tola gold, and equivalent cash, if you have in your ownership and possession, you are considered wealthy. Or if you have 52.5 tola of silver, or equivalent in cash, in money, then you are considered as wealthy. However, many a times it will be easier for us to calculate in grams than tola. So what is that equivalent to? 612.36 grams of silver. So if you in your ownership and possession have 612.36 grams of silver or money, cash equivalent to it, you are regarded as wealthy, maldar in Sharia. Or, if it's in terms of gold, if you have 87.48 grams of gold or equivalent in cash, you are regarded as wealthy. Now, alhamdulillah, you'll be able to see the screen and you'll be able to see the difference in the values, a massive difference, a huge farq. Previously, 612.36 grams of silver would have been equal in value to 87.48 grams of gold. So it would not have mattered whether we looked at any of their values. But as time has passed on, we can see that the value of gold and silver has fluctuated, and the difference between 612.36 grams of silver and 87.48 grams of gold has become further and further. Why are these two important? Inshallah, they'll be followed through. Now, just a quick calculation. So if I want to see whether I'm wealthy today or not, you find out what 1 gram of silver is equivalent to. So if you went to any of these websites, and this was as per yesterday, 1 gram of silver would cost you £2.39. We want to see whether you have 612.36 grams of silver or money equivalent to it. So you calculate it as 2.39, because that's 1 gram of silver, times 612.36. As for those who are into quick maths, hopefully, inshallah, well, I use the calculator. It will give you 1,463 and 54 pence, but let's round it up to say 1,500, because we'll use this figure probably. So 1,463, 1,500 is the nisab of silver, which means if you have silver 612.36 grams or money equivalent 1,500 in your pocket or at home or under the mattress or in the bank account somewhere, if you were to add and accumulate all of that, and if it adds up to and makes up to 1,500 or above, then that means you're wealthy, that means you're eligible to give zakat. How? Again, that process is coming. But you are regarded as wealthy. But if you look at all your money, the gold and the silver, and if you have any business assets, if you were to add all the values, and it only adds up to £200, £300, then you are not regarded as wealthy, and you are not obliged to give zakat. But if you were to do the same now with the gold, okay, so F25MAS, F25MAS, if the owner can quickly remove the car, it's causing an obstruction and it's not parked in the bay. And we sent a message out, I think it was 2 days ago, on the Masjid E Vali group. This is a parking bay, park your car in the bay. And suddenly we found lots of laughter and smiley faces. And I was wondering, why is that funny for? But this is why the messages are there. I understand people are passionate, there's less time, they want to park anyhow and get in, but then it obviously causes obstruction. So soon we'll be releasing videos of tutorial. Nevertheless, so gold, 87.48 grams. So again, you go online, you find out what's 1 gram of gold. So yesterday, again, this can fluctuate. Probably if you were to work it out today, you will find some difference. 1 gram of gold is 119 pounds. Now you times that by 87.48, that'll give you 10,488. Let's assume 10,500 pounds. You can see a big difference. Silver nisab, the threshold reached by nisab is 1,500 approximately, and gold is 10,500. Now, why do you need to know this? The conclusion is, if there is an individual who only has gold and nothing else, no silver, no cash, then they will use the gold nisab. So imagine they have no penny, they have no money, they have no silver, and the only thing they have is gold alone. Then they will see, do they have gold equivalent to 87.48 grams or not? If anything less, they're not obliged to give zakat. Anything more, then they will have to. But I'm assuming here 99% of us will have a mixture, either only cash or cash and silver or cash and gold or cash, gold and silver. In this case, for majority of us, we will use this silver nisab, 1,463 pounds. So again, if there's anything you're going to leave away with on this slide, is to remember 1,400 pounds or so. If I have anything less, or my children, if I were to add all their gold, silver, money, then they're not required to give zakah. If they have reached this nisab equivalent, then they will have to give zakah. How? Obviously, that'll follow in the next few slides. So if one has a mixture of assets, like we said, 99% of the time, you will be looking at this number. And it's really strange. Because you'll see, if you were following the nisab since the last few years, there has been a massive jump. I still remember a few years back, we were discussing 200 pounds, 250 pounds. Then it became 300, 350, 400. It was lately 500. And now suddenly, in the last few months or so, it's gone up by 1,000 pounds. And I was actually shocked because one of these presentations were done just a few months ago. And I remember having the value up to 400 pounds, 500 pounds. Just in the last few months, it's become this figure. And this figure will change and fluctuate. So we can't assume, well, in 2030 and 2035, 2040, we still stick to this figure. It may go down, it may go up. But for time being, it's around this figure. And I also remember there's a slide coming afterwards, which I've not updated yet. But that was based on the previous nisab. So I will explain how that was and why that slide was made. But obviously, this is the latest nisab equivalent. Okay, this slide, lots of information, extremely important. Paying zakah, zakah anniversary date. Just like we have our birth dates, well, the death date no one knows, but may Allah allow us to prepare before it arrives. And then there's the wedding anniversary date, lest you ever forget about it. So zakat anniversary date. There is a big misconception, galat fahmi. Many people assume that Ramadan will come and we'll calculate our money, our zakat in Ramadan, and we will give in Ramadan as the charities come. Zakat has an anniversary date. There is a single date in the lunar calendar that is fixed as your zakat date, and you are obliged to calculate your zakat and give accordingly to that date. To give you an example, there is a child that reaches an age of bulugh, maturity, 14 years old. They don't have any money, fine. However, the day when they receive 1,500 pounds or equivalent, forever must be noted into their diaries, into their books. Why? The following year, the exact lunar calendar Islamic date, they will now look at their assets, their gold, their silver, their cash, and will calculate if it's still equivalent to nisab, then they will give 2.5% on it. There's more information on it. But then that date will remain with them mostly forever until they hit zero or minus. Inshallah, we'll be providing an example. But just to give an example is, if it was the 15th of Ramadan, now every year 15th of Ramadan, you will calculate your zakat. Can zakat be given in advance? Yes, we can. That'll inshallah be discussed. But you will have to ensure that you calculate on that day to make sure that you've not given anything less. So it's important to define a date. Now I understand majority of the people may be thinking, well, I don't know exactly when I was young and I received money equivalent to nisab. I just give my zakah as soon as it's Ramadan or as soon as it's the next taxpayer's year or so. Now if you can backdate and find out, looking at your bank account, then fine. Otherwise, what I would recommend is that from today, from now onwards, have a single date. Whether it's the 10th of Ramadan, 15th of Ramadan, 20th Ramadan, and then every year, calculate your zakat on that date. And inshallah, we'll discuss more. But it's important to determine one date. Lunar calendar. Again, many people may think, oh, we give it every January, every April, every so and so. No, it must be an Islamic date. It must be an Islamic month. So 15th of Ramadan every year. 1st of Muharram every year. 20th of Rabi'ul Awwal every year. ASAP. Zakat must not be delayed. To show negligence will result in sin. So a person shouldn't delay zakat unnecessary, but rather relieve yourself from that responsibility and give zakah. As we've said before, if there's a natural catastrophe, if there's a problem, if there's an emergency, if there's a need, and your zakat date is 15th of Ramadan, today is 1st, fine. You can't dispose of it, you can't give zakah in advance as long as you have intention, and on 15th of Ramadan, you ensure you've given enough zakat. If you had given less zakat, you'll top it up. It's allowed in advance, as we said. Snapshot calculation. This is extremely important. Snapshot calculation. What does it mean by snapshot calculation? Let's assume zakat is compulsory on me. I'm 30, 40 years old. Zakat is compulsory on me. I have enough wealth. And now I know there's a single date that I will have to calculate my zakat. For example, 15th of Ramadan. Now, it doesn't matter when the money came into your account, when it left from your account. It's obvious. We're working people. We'll be receiving continuous, regular wages, salary. And obviously, there'll be expenses going out. So there'll be ups and downs. We will not look at the ups and downs. Rather, we will look at snapshot calculation. How much money do I have on 15th of Ramadan? Not what I had yesterday, not what I've had since last few months. How much do I have today? Why I emphasize this is, again, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Let's assume I have 10,000 pounds. Today's my zakah anniversary date. But one day before that, yesterday, I was feeling really generous, and out of that 10,000 pounds, I said to someone, 9,000 pounds for you here, take it away. I transferred it into the bank account. It's theirs, they've gone. Today is my zakah date. How much money do I have? 1,000. You may argue I had that 10,000 for 10 years. But it doesn't matter. The 9,000 I gave away, well, I don't have today. So I will calculate 2.5% on what I have today, regardless of what I had throughout the whole year and what I gave away. Let's flip it around, the other way around. I had 1,000 pounds, and I must have read a really powerful wazifa. And the day before my zakah day, someone said, here, 9,000 pounds for you. I'm like, Jazakallah. So I take the 9,000. I'm not giving anyone any tips there, by the way. What do they say? No box gifts or something? So I had 1,000. I received 9,000. Today's my zakah anniversary date. Now how much do I need to give zakat on? I've had 1,000 for a year. 9,000 for less than 24 hours. But I will have to include everything I have today because it's snapshot calculation. Not that we're going to do, but if I want to avoid it, I'd say to him, don't give it to me today, give it to me the day after my zakat anniversary date, for example. It's an individual obligation. I understand kids are growing up, they're 15, 16, they've got a couple of thousands in their bank. Now parents are not obliged to take zakat for each other, the spouses, nor for their children. It's an individual obligation. Husband to take his own account. Wife to take her own. Children to take her own if they've reached bulugh maturity. However, if the parents prefer, he's only got 2,000 pounds, the zakat is less, I'll give on your behalf, that's fine, as long as they are made aware and they've made the niyyah and intention. Similar husband and wife. The husband says that I need to take out my zakat, I'd rather also give your zakat. Then number one is, she needs to be made aware. She needs to have made the intention. Then it's fine for him to give. Similarly, it's important that he knows exactly how much zakat he needs to give from her. He may be aware of her account, he may be aware of her gold and silver, but he's not aware of the money and the loose cash she's hiding behind the mattress. Not that they do. But he will have to ensure he knows all the details and then give zakat accordingly. This is where I've made that mistake and forgot to update it. Let's just look at the example anyway. You'll be able to appreciate the concept. Now just take yourselves back and assume nisab is not 1,500 approximate, it's 500. Assume it's 500 because that's when the slide was made. Now you're going to help me out over here that when do I give zakat? So for example, Muhammad was a young child, he became baligh and mature on 13th of Ramadan. On 13th of Ramadan, he had 300 pounds. On 14th, he met a generous auntie who gave him 300 pounds additional. So on 15th of Ramadan, 1445, he now for the first time, after reaching maturity, has 600 pounds. Above the nisab 500, we said. 5th of Shawwal, obviously he's gotten on a Eid spending spree, so he only has now 250. 13th of Ramadan, the next year, mashallah, he's been gathering all the pennies, now he has 1,000 pounds. 15th of Ramadan, he spent some money, 700 pounds. 5th of Shawwal, 300 pounds. So I have two questions for you. When will I give my zakah? How much zakah will I give? Okay. 500 pounds is the nisab, the threshold. Quick, hands in the air. Who thinks he will have to give zakat on 13th of Ramadan, 1445? Okay, no one, that's good. Who thinks he has to give zakat on 15th of Ramadan, 1445? Few hands, good. At least we have some people to pick up on. 5th Shawwal, 1445. Who thinks 13th of Ramadan, 1446? Who thinks 15th of Ramadan, 1446? And who thinks 5th Shawwal, 1446? Okay, so the correct answer is 15th of Ramadan, 1446. So let's assume he became baligh on the 13th. But he only has 300 pounds then. So that is less than nisab. On 15th, he gets 600, which is equivalent to or more than nisab. But he won't give zakat straight away. That triggers. Now, you know when you've heard whilst growing up, a year passes by. That's what it means. So, for the first time you acquire wealth equivalent to nisab, you will now write it down, the date. After a whole year has passed by, the exact date, if you still have zakat, nisab equivalent, you will give your zakat. Now, during the year, there may be ups and downs. It doesn't matter as long as they do not hit zero. So, for example, 15th of Ramadan, now he has 1445, 600. It triggers. Now, I will not look at any ups or downs throughout the lunar year, as long as he doesn't hit zero. Now, 15th of Ramadan, 1446, 700 pounds. Yes, I will calculate what's 2.5% of 700 because it's more than nisab, more than 500. I will give accordingly. Next year as well, 15th of Ramadan, 1447. Then 15th of Ramadan, 1448. Now we will disregard the ups and downs throughout the year. Okay, now inshallah, I don't want to take too much time in the next less than 10 minutes. I want to discuss what must I give zakat on. So we'll be looking at few areas. Money, gold and silver, business assets, investments, stocks, shares, pensions, livestock and crops. I don't think Mufti Muadh were going to go through livestock and crops. Unless you want to wander into the farms and fields, but probably we'll get lost on the way then. So we'll be looking at money, gold and silver, business asset, pensions, investments and all these things because it's relevant to 99% of our people. So inshallah in the next few minutes I'll go through money, gold and silver and somewhat touch upon what is a business asset. And then Mufti Muadh will take it through talking about shares, pensions, who's eligible for zakah and some calculations inshallah. Now, always just remember this. This is your key guide. Zakah is only on All right, I've lost this. Where's it gone? All right, I can see it there. All right, definitely. All right, no, we can't see it, but it's quite dull. Nevertheless, so zakah is only on, let's remember this. You'll have to repeat it because that's when you'll help Mufti Muadh as well when he's going through his stuff. Zakah is only on cash, money, gold and silver, trade assets, business assets. What we mean by business assets, inshallah, will be revealed. Then livestock and crops, we can ignore them too. As simple as this. Zakah is only on cash, money, gold and silver, business assets, trade assets. Majority of you might say, well, I don't have business assets. I don't have gold and silver, I've only got cash, easy. There might be some who are saying cash and gold and silver. Now, any question now I ask you, you'll just go through the checklist. Is it cash? No. Is it gold and silver? No. Is it a business asset? Business asset is anything which is bought with the intention of selling. Bought with the intention of selling. Let's say I've got precious diamonds in my pocket. They're worth 50,000 pounds. I have precious diamonds in my pocket. They're worth 50,000 pounds. Do I need to give zakat on them? There's yes and no. Okay, checklist. Is that cash money? No. Is that gold and silver? No. Did I buy with the intention of selling? Let's say no. Then even if it's worth 50,000, I don't need to give zakat. Yes. You would have probably asked me that, well, it depends that 50,000, was it with the intention of selling? Then yes. Okay, let's quickly go through this. General rule, there is no zakat on any asset owned except 1, 2, 3. Cash, gold or silver, business asset. So there's no zakat on a house purchased to live in. Let's assume your house is worth 1 million pounds. Do you need to give zakat on the house? Is it cash? No. Is it gold or silver? No. Did you buy with the sole intention of selling? No. Come on, we're humans. It may well be that after 10, 15, 20 years, you might think, you know what? Let's sell this off and let's buy something else. Again, it's not a business asset. You didn't buy with the sole intention of selling. You're still residing. A land purchased to build a house on. That land could be worth 1 million pounds. But it's not cash, it's not gold or silver, and you've not bought the land with the sole intention of selling the land. Furniture and fittings, motor vehicles. You could have 5 cars parked outside your house. They're not cash, they're not gold or silver. You didn't buy with the intention of selling them. And any goods purchased for personal use or even renting purposes. This is quite common, this question. Let's say, alhamdulillah, I'm a property developer. I purchase 10 properties. Then I put some of them on rent. Do I need to give zakat on the 10 properties that I've given them on rent? Let's go through it. Are the properties cash? Are the properties cash? No. Are the properties gold and silver? No. Did I buy the properties with the sole intention of selling the property itself? No. I'm not selling the properties. I've held them so that I can accrue and I can receive the profits by lending it to others. But I'm still the owner. So even though you own 10 properties, they're all on rent, you don't need to give zakat on it. Yes, if the zakat anniversary date comes and you receive the money, the rental payments, and you're the owner of it, then obviously just like your all other cash, you will have to give zakat on it. So zakat is only compulsory on house, lands, vehicles, clothing, all these examples we gave, if they become business asset. I.e., when you bought them, at that time, your intention was solely to possess, own them, to sell them. So what must I give zakat on? What do I mean by money? All cash, as we said, in your pocket, at home, in your bank accounts. There's no zakat on haram money, because let alone 2.5%, in its entirety, 100% should be given away either to the people from whom they've been received or to the deserving poor people. However, we may minus the debt. Just to give you an example, let's say I have 5,000 pounds on me, but I owe my next door neighbor 1,000 pounds. That again we'll talk a bit in detail, but I can minus that. So although I've got 5,000 pounds in my pocket, but because I owe them, it's a debt, I can minus that. So my 2.5% will not be from the full 5,000, it's only from the 4,000. So what must I give zakat on? What about the money owed to you? Now this is a famous question as well, that okay, I've got £5,000, I owe someone, I can minus. What about the money I don't have now, but people owe me? Do I still give zakat on it? Yes, but I don't have it in my possession yet. So let's go through it. There's different types of money owed to you. Number one, personal loans. Personal loans is money you expect back for lending out a personal loan. Let's say your next door neighbor is going through refurbishment and they're doing decoration and they fall short of £5,000. They knock at your door and they say, can we borrow £5,000? You're like, they're laying there in the bank anyway, here have £5,000. So it's a personal loan you've expected. And you know they'll give to you, whether in 6 months or in 5 years, or they'll give you, you're expecting its return, then you will have to include them in your calculation every year. However, sometimes there's also the issue. You lend someone £5,000. Now after 1 year, 2 years, you're texting them. What is it? Double blue ticks. You're calling them. You saw them on the call, now you're being ignored. You knock at them. They tell their children, tell them I'm not in. They're trying to run away. And after 5 years of chasing them, you've lost all hope. Happens, isn't it, unfortunately? You've lost all hope that whether you're going to get that money back or not. Then you don't need to include that in your zakah. Because you've lost all expectation and hope of receiving it. Yes, if they get the tawfiq and the ability to make tawbah 10 years afterwards, and one day they come knocking at your door and give you your £5,000 back, subhanallah, now you take it, but you won't have to calculate your zakat from the previous years, because it was as though it's not there. So that must be included, personal loans. Similarly, credit sales. That is, if you're a businessman, then you've sold some items on credit and you are owed money. I'm owed £10,000 and my zakat date comes. Do I need to include that? I will have to include that £10,000, although I do not have in my possession right now, but I am owed because of selling a business item. Yes, you may argue in some of these things that I don't have liquid cash. I've lent so much thousands, so it's fine. You may give once you've received that money back, but you will have to calculate for the previous years. That's what we're saying. Now, this is an interesting activity. So therefore, is there zakat on inheritance shares? A very famous question, because they'll have some relatives, their father or their sibling or someone has passed away back home in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the inheritance has not been distributed yet, but you are entitled to receive, after they sell the land, £25,000. So I know I am entitled to receive £25,000 out of inheritance. Do I need to give zakat on it? I'm going to go through these 2 points. The money owed to me, £25,000, is it because of a personal loan I had extended? Is it a personal loan? No, that's someone passed away in my family and I were to receive it. So no. Was it because I am owed that £25,000 because I sold an item to someone? I'm a businessman? No. So therefore, although I perhaps will be receiving 25,000 or entitled, I'm not obliged to give zakat if I've not received it yet on my zakat anniversary date. A commonly asked question is outstanding wages. It's obvious that you've been working for 3 weeks. 1 more week and you'll get your wages at the end of the month. Now your zakat anniversary date has come. Now you've worked for those 3 weeks. You're entitled to that money, which you're going to receive later because of your services, your work. So do I need to include that 3 weeks wages which I'm entitled to yet not given yet? Let's go back on the slide. The money that I am owed, 3 weeks wages, is it because of a personal loan I extended? No. Is it because of a business item I sold as a businessman? No. It was the skills, so therefore you will not need to worry to give zakat for the 3 weeks of wages that's outstanding. Then there's examples of loans advanced without any hope of repayment, outstanding invoices for the sale of personal items. That's the difference. If, for example, you've got a couple of phones and you use all of them, and probably you just sold the phone to someone and they're about to give you their money in, let's say, a month's time, and your zakat anniversary date comes, you don't need to include in zakat the money that they owe you, because it's a personal item. It's not a keyword, is business item. Payouts, awards, settlements. I'm just a bit conscious of time. I don't want to take too much time. This is an example of, like, Fatima loves to travel the world and now has various currencies in. As you can see, I try to make it gender friendly, but in doing so, this is how you mess up. And again, I wasn't stereotyping about traveling, nevertheless. He has in his savings £500, $200, 20 dirhams. How much zakat? It's easy. Obviously, you just convert that into the common currency, the dollars and the dirhams. Find out the equivalent in cash. So let's assume it was £700. Then you just do 2.5% of it, and you give 2.5%, whether in sterling or whatever. Okay, I'm going to go through this slide very quickly. What must I give zakat on gold or silver? Any gold and silver. Now this is in the Hanafi madhab, any gold or silver, whether a person wears the gold or silver, or whether they store it and probably they never see it ever until that one date, all must be given zakat on. It is also necessary on mixed metal jewelry. And there is a slight difference of opinion that must it be over 50% or so. And some scholars say no, even if it's 9 carat, then zakat is necessary. In a mixture of metals, only the gold and silver. So if there's other metals also included in that bracelet or so, it's only on the content, which is the gold and silver, that you'll have to give zakat on. There is no zakat on gold and silver which is stuck onto the body and can't be removed, for example, a gold tooth. However, zakah has to be given if they can be removed. For example, a removable golden nose ring. Another point is use scrap gold value. Because if you were to check the internet, it might give you the new gold value. And the gold that you have is old. It's scrap. It's second hand. So it's always easier to go to the local jewelers and give to them. They will value it and you will give zakat accordingly. There is no zakat on any other metal besides gold and silver. Now that should answer all the questions. Aluminium, platinum, precious stones, pearls, diamonds, all these things, although their value may be in thousands, is it cash? No. Is it gold or silver? No. Did you buy with the sole intention of selling? No. Then there's no zakah. Yes, if you did buy with the sole intention of selling, then it comes under number 3, business assets. This is another example which we'll skip through. Okay, so the last thing I'll go through before I pass it on to Mufti Muadh, what must I give zakat on business assets? Again, I'm not going to go through the stocks, the shares, the pensions, to everything, investments, because that'll be in the following session. But if I'm a businessman, I need to give zakat on these 4 things mostly. All the cash I have, receivables. Receivables is the money I am owed because of selling business items. So for example, let's say I make sofas and I sell sofas. So I will see how much money do I have in the till, how much money I have at home, how much money I have in the bank account, and I will include all that. Receivables. I've sold 100 sofas. I will be receiving their payments at the end of the month yet. But because it comes under number 2, business items, so therefore I will have to also give zakat of that, although I don't have the payment right now. Thirdly is, if I have any such item which I bought with the sole intention to sell, and lastly is any investments. What that means is, all those things which I will be selling, not the fixtures, not the vehicles. Let's say I've got a sofa, I've got land. Am I selling the land? I don't need to give zakat on it because I'm not selling the land. I've got a factory building. Am I selling the factory, the land, the building? No. I've got machinery worth £50,000. Am I selling the machinery? There's no zakat. I've got 2-3 vans. Do I need to give zakat on them? No. I only have to give zakat on the stuff that I will be selling. That's either prepared beds, or even if it's not a prepared bed and it's in making, then at least what the screws and boards and everything else, I will have to value and give accordingly. Same, I have a corner shop. Now I will have to calculate my zakat of the sweets, the chocolates, the drinks, to everything that I'm selling. Let's say I have a takeaway. Now again, if the burger buns, the burgers, the chickens, to anything there I will be selling, I will have to find their value and I will give zakat accordingly of the things which will be sold. So there is no zakat on unless purchased with the intention of resale on land, building, machinery, equipment, fixtures and fittings, transport vehicles, outstanding service, receivables. Again, service we're saying. Mufti Muadh, if there is anything that is missed, then you can always just go through. Okay, what must I give zakat on? What about properties? Okay, we've already touched on this. Let's say I've got a house. Do I need to give zakat on it? We'll go through that. Did I buy that house solely to sell? Yes, it's not cash, it's not gold or silver, but it's number 3. I.e., I bought it with the intention of selling. It's a business asset, so there is zakah. But if it's a house just to reside in, it could be worth 1 million, there's no zakat. Buy to let, again we said there's no zakat. Uncertain. And many people will buy a house, they're like, you know what, it was for sale, I bought it, I might sell it if I get a good offer, it's nearby the university, if some students want to, I might just give it out to them on rent. Oh, my son's growing up, he could probably live in there, probably I could give it to him. You know, there's many uncertain. Then again, you don't need to give zakat because it's not cash, it's not gold or silver, and it's not a business asset yet. Business asset, one more time, is when at the time of buying, you have a sole intention of selling it. And that's the intention, not in between. Similarly, let's say I'm living in a house that's worth 1 million. Now I put it for sale. It's on for sale. Do I need to give zakat on that? No, because I didn't buy it with the sole intention of selling. I was residing in it. So even if it's for sale, it will not be regarded as a business asset. Yes, if I sold it and I received the money and my zakat date comes, then I will include it just like the rest of the cash. Again, I won't go through this zakat calculation. And inshallah, jazakumullah khairah. Sorry, Mufti Muadh, for taking it. Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So if you still have the expectation and hope that it will be returned, then yes, you will have to give zakat for the last 40 years. But since you do not have that money now, that's fine. Once you receive it, afterwards, then you'll give zakat. That's fine as well. So that's fine even if you've not received it yet, and that might be easier rather than calculating 40 years back. Then, for example, even in a normal case, if a person does it year by year as well, that's fine. You'll calculate it because it would have gone slightly down, because from that 4,000, you will calculate, for example, year 1, 2.5% was given away. Now that value's gone down because 2.5 you give. Then you give 2.5 of the next year, and the next year, and the next year. Yeah. Sure.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli wa nusallimu ala rasulihil kareem ba'd. I'll just take over from where Mufti Hanif Sahib had left off, and inshallah ta'ala, alhamdulillah, he's covered quite a bit already, so there's not much for me to cover, but inshallah ta'ala, we'll just go through the pensions discussion and the discussion on shares. So when you buy a share, or you're investing into equity, or you're investing on the stock market, or whatever you're buying into, you are essentially going to have two ideas. And remember, intention is very important in zakat. So as Mufti already clarified, we looked even with merchandise. I call it merchandise, Mufti calls it he calls it business asset. It's all the same. So trade assets, whatever you bought, we looked at your intention when you bought it, isn't it? Same thing when you're buying on the stock market, or if you're buying equity or whatever. You're going to look at your intention when you bought it. If your intention was to resell / active trading strategy, which is that essentially you're buying this whole share. You're buying, for example, let me just give you an example here. You're buying a share of Apple. Now you're buying this entire share with the intention that I'm just going to see if Apple, their value increases, Amazon's value increases. For example, you're investing into an AI company or something like that, and you know AI companies right now, or their values are really increasing, and you're just buying it literally with the intention that I'm going to sell this on. I'm going to sell this on at some point, put it back onto the stock market, etc., and I'm just going to sell it back. Then you will pay zakat on the entire holding of that share. So you will pay on the entire holding, even though that share that you've bought is literally, it would include things that are not zakatable, things that are not cash, things that are not gold and silver, and things that are not trade assets. For example, doesn't Apple have buildings? Doesn't Apple have vans? Don't they have things that they use to run their, I don't know, whatever, their store, etc.? You don't pay zakat on, like what Mufti just said, you don't pay on furniture. Your share represents, not literally an ownership. If you know, obviously the finance geeks will tell you that literally it does not mean you own a piece of Apple, the Apple company, but in the sense of zakat, you can say that you own a piece of Apple, the company. Now Apple is, you could say, you've got the building, the furniture, you don't pay zakat on all that. You only pay zakat on the money that Apple has, gold and silver, and anything Apple bought with the intention of resale. And that includes things that they got made with the intention of selling on. For example, laptops and all of the, you could say, the software that they're making, not software, the hardware, the laptops, the iPhones, the iPads. You own a portion of that because of your share. If you bought this share with the intention of selling the entire share on, then it's like as though you bought 5%, let's just say, of Apple, the building, the whole thing, the furniture, with the intention of selling that on to someone else. Therefore, that's going to be zakatable, and therefore you will pay zakat on the full share. But if your intention was a long-term investment, so what that means is, I'm buying the share with the intention of a buy and hold strategy, which is, I'm just going to buy it, I'm going to see if the value of Apple increases, the value of Amazon increases. Over time, I'm just going to keep it with me, it's going to stay with me. It's not with the intention of selling on, it's just with the intention I'll take out dividends later on. In that case, then, you will only pay zakat on the zakatable assets of Apple and Amazon. How are you going to work that out? The zakatable assets of Amazon and Apple. Let's do it. Right? So, we will try to do that now. So, how do you work out the zakatable assets of your shares? So, this only applies in that second scenario, which is when you're holding on to shares. There'll be a lot of people like this. I've met a lot of people like this, who they just bought the shares, we invested into it, didn't really think we'll do anything with it, but now it's really, mashallah, the portfolio is looking good. There's quite a bit of money in there. What do I do? So this is where this person now needs to look at the zakatable assets of a share. What I want to do is I want to draw your attention to that bottom line there. If this is too hard for you, anytime this is too difficult for you, like, bro, this is just crazy, I'm not looking at this is ridiculous, then just apply the proxy of 25%. 25% of your share, assume that to be zakatable. What that means is, you've got 5% of Apple, right? Not literally, but you've got 5% you own of Apple, of Amazon, of all of these different companies. 5% of that, you're going to assume 25% of that 5%, you need to pay zakat on it. How much zakat do you pay? 2.5%. So you're going to pay 2.5% of the 25% of that 5% that you own of Apple and Amazon. So basically, whatever value you've got in your portfolio, on your balance sheet or whatever you've got, you're going to look at that figure, apply 25% to it, and then apply 2.5% to that. We're going to assume 25% of your share is the cash, gold and silver, and the trading assets that Apple, Amazon, etc. have. This was done by Mufti Faraz Sahab from Leicester, and what they did was they took about, I read this a while back, so from his Zakat Made Easy, he explains that we took from the, I think the FTSE index, or different indexes, they put them together, they checked the top trading companies, and they found out that they did a bit of research, and they found that the average is about 25% of what Apple has will be zakatable. Even though they're not going to call it zakatable, obviously. But it's cash, it'll be gold and silver, and it's things that they've bought with the intention of selling on to customers. 25%. The rest will be other things. For example, their buildings, their lorries, their truck drivers, etc. All of that stuff. So the first thing you're going to do is deduct the company's liabilities from the zakatable assets. So you're going to use something which we call the balance sheet. This is the most useful financial statement for a company for zakat calculation purposes. So anytime you've got shares that you're looking at, just find the balance sheet of every company that you've invested in. It's not that difficult. It'll sometimes be on the internet as well. Deduct the company's liabilities from the zakatable assets. It's going to look confusing, but we're going to go through one example. If you understand it, very, very good, inshallah. I think you will. Deduct the company's liabilities from the zakatable assets. So first we need to work out the zakatable assets. I'll show you that just now from an example of a balance sheet. Number 2, divide the net zakatable assets of the company by the value of the entire company. We call that the market cap. And then multiply that by 100. This gives you the net zakatable assets that the company has. And say, for example, it has 15%. I told you the proxy that we're going to go with, if you can't work any of this out, is 25%. But our company, for example, has 15%. I.e. 15% of Apple, 15% of Amazon, whatever company you've invested into, they have cash. 15% of that is cash, gold and silver, and trading assets. 15%. Now say your share is worth £100. So you've got a block of that massive picture of Apple. You've got pixel, one piece of that pie you've got. So you need to work out from your piece, okay, 15% of Apple is zakatable, then 15% of my £100 is also going to be zakatable. So multiply the percentage you found earlier, 15%, by £100. This is now the value of the zakatable assets in your share, which is therefore going to be 15% of £100 is going to be £15, and therefore you will pay, you're not going to pay £15 in zakat. You're going to pay zakat on £15 only, which is going to be 2.5% of £15, and therefore you will pay literally about 36p. But that's if you've only got £100 share. Now let's just have a look at what I just said there. Let's apply it. So this is a question, I think I got it 2 years ago, and I'll just show you this. So this is a company the individual had invested in. It was called Regeneron Pharmaceuticals Incorporated, and all of these values are USD million. Is that okay? So you can see green here. Green are all zakatable. Red, non-zakatable. Yellow, it can be zakatable, it might not be zakatable. Out of precaution, I would add it in. Is that okay? So let's have a look at it. Cash and short-term investments. This you will find, by the way, I literally found this on the internet by going onto that company's website, literally just checking their balance sheet, having a look. Or sometimes, I think for this one, the Mustafti actually sent me, the question actually sent me the balance sheet, and then I had to just do a further few checks on the internet. So he sent me the balance sheet, and this is literally a copy of the balance sheet. I typed it up onto a different table, but it's literally a replica of what he had sent me. So he had cash and short-term investments. This box was not there, but I've just put it in so you understand. This is basically how much money the company actually has. So Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, they've got $10,845,000. We ignore 2023, we ignore 2022. They'll give you about 3 years usually on the balance sheet. We just want to know what they had in 2024. We're going to assume this is 2025. This was a slideshow that I did last year, I think. So that's zakatable. Definitely cash, short-term receivables. That's basically cash. So that's zakatable. Okay, second one. Total accounts receivable. This is the amount of money that is owed to them. Mufti Sahib just explained you pay zakat on money that's owed to you, as long as you can access it and you can get it off that person. How much money is owed to them? That was about 5 million. Their inventories is basically stock. How much stock do they have? So Apple will have their inventory of how many laptops, etc. that they have. 10 billion, apologies, you're right, 100%. There's 10 billion, 100%. So business stock is how much they have inside of there. Like for example, laptops, etc. for Apple. Amazon will have all of their, you could say literally everything. Amazon sells the whole world, doesn't it? Right? Other current assets, this could be zakatable, it might not be zakatable. What's other current assets? What does that mean? Something that will turn into money in the next 12 months. I.e., you're either selling something or it's an investment. This one, I would put it in, out of precaution, count it in. Remember, we're going to be adding up all of these values. Net property, plant and equipment. This is the buildings, land, etc. of the company. This is not zakatable. The company, this is not cash, this is not gold or silver, this is not land that the company bought with the intention of selling it on to someone else. So this is not zakatable. Red. This is yellow, which is total investments and advancements, which means what investments the company has made. This could be cash, might not be cash, it could be anything. This, ideally, include it if you can. This one as well, intangible assets. This is going to be like software, this is going to be stuff like assets of the company that are not tangible, you can't touch them. Stuff like they have software, different, many different things, right? copyrights and stuff like that. So this as well, you're not going to include it in your zakatable assets. And other assets, again, very vague. It could be zakatable, it might not be zakatable. What we're going to do, we're going to add up the green, cash, short-term investments, total accounts receivables, inventories, and maybe the yellow, ideally the yellow as well, and then deduct total current liabilities. This will be written on the balance sheet. It will actually say total current liabilities that the company has. You now have the net zakatable assets of the company. All you've got to work out now, so you've got a figure, this is how much money this company has in terms of zakatable assets. What is this figure in relation to the value of the company? What's the percentage? What's our denominator? That's what we're going to work out. This is where we will just literally go on Google, and this is literally a screenshot of what I did on Google. Add up the green and yellow and then deduct total current liabilities. You now have the net zakatable assets of the company. Now we need to find the denominator. What that means is, we want to work out what's the percentage of this zakatable portion of the company in relation to all of its assets. And literally we'll just type in our company in Google, followed by the words market cap. And if you can see that number there, the company, and this is why the brother is 100% spot on, it's valued at 74.02 billion USD. This is the market cap, which is the current value of the company in the market, i.e. what does market cap mean? What is literally what's the value of the company in the market? What does that mean? If all the shares of the company were sold in the market, this is what we would get out of it. This is what all the investors would get. Now divide your zakatable assets by the market cap and multiply that by 100. So do you know those values that we got earlier? By adding up green and yellow, divide that by 74.02 billion. That's going to give you a percentage. I guarantee you that percentage should not be anything above 30%. Highly, highly unlikely. If you're getting anything above 30%, reach out, inshallah, we can see what's gone wrong. That is the percentage of zakatable assets of your share. Very easy now. Whatever the value of your share is on your balance sheet, multiply by that by whatever percentage you're getting there, and that's the amount of zakat you need to pay, 2.5% on that. Then we come to pensions. Pensions is another very, very important one. And to be honest with you, looking at the time, inshallah ta'ala, we should be able to cover it, but very, very quickly. You get two types of shares. One type is referred to as defined benefit. Defined benefit, if I were to literally make it in layman's terms, this is literally one wherein you have zero control over where and how that money is being invested. It is for you when you get to the age 55 or whatever, but you have zero control over what that your employer wants to do with that money, or the pension company. They are completely controlling it. Then you get defined contribution, which is where you play a role. Whether that's you or literally the fund manager of the pension, you have some say over what happens with that money. And by the way, if you do have a say with that money, we all know that we should be trying to invest our money into Sharia-compliant pensions. Very, very important. Remember, pension is the one you really want to make sure it's in a Sharia-compliant one, because that's a long-term investment that you're going to get after many, many years. You don't want to find out, I invested my pension in the wrong... we've had questions from people, subhanAllah, sometimes they've invested for 20 years, they've reached a very old age, but all of their money was invested in a company which technically was not Sharia compliant. So now they need to work out which part of that company we need to assume to be haram, etc. So in any case, so he has some control over the pension, and therefore now you will give zakat on defined contribution pensions. But how do you give zakat on it if you've not got access to it? So this is a common question. Why do I have to give zakat if I can't get it out right now? If I were to, I'd have to pay huge amounts in tax. They deduct I'd have penalties. Why do I have to give zakat on it? The reason why is the whole reason why you need to have access to money in the first place is so that you can increase the amount that you're getting in there. So for example, if I have £50 right now, I have to pay zakat on it. But if someone takes this £50 and buries it somewhere in this whole courtyard and doesn't tell me where, I don't need to pay zakat on it. Even though it exists, I own it, I don't have access to it. The reason why I don't have to pay zakat is because I am not literally able to grow that money if I want to. I can't invest it. Here, you can't access the money because it's already been invested, because it's already increasing, because you are already doing what you would have wanted to if you had access to that money, which is increasing it. So you do have to pay zakat on it. Now, how do you pay zakat? So essentially, these are the two types. In pensions, you've got defined benefit, state pension. You don't pay zakat on that until you get it. And then defined contribution, you've got different types. SIPs, quite common. AVC, I'm not seeing that very often, but personal pension plans, very common as well. Now let's just have a look. What do you do with these pensions? For example, do you need to stop paying now? You can do. If you want to, you can stop paying now. That's a brilliant idea as well. The only thing is, you will naturally end up paying more zakat than you need to. I'll tell you why. If you were not to pay your zakat right now, when you get your actual pension at the age of 55 or whenever you decide to retire, you will have to pay a little bit of tax if you want to take out more than the amount that you get tax-free. So you might want to delay paying your zakat until you actually receive the money. The other thing is you end up paying zakat and Allah will give everyone a long life and with barakah, but you pass away before that. So even then, you paid zakat, technically you didn't need to, because you never got access to it, you passed away before. So all of these options are there. What if you decide not to pay your zakat? That still means you need to keep a track of what money is in your pension every single year. Now, I'm not going to go into my personal situation, but I use something called Pension B. This is very, very good. Pension B, this is something I would recommend everyone to use. It's a brilliant company. You can put all of your different portfolios of pension in there. It will keep a track of everything, and it will even give you your fact sheets of each company. So it's very, very beneficial. So every year in your zakat document or in your zakat book, whatever you use, Excel document, Google Sheets, keep a track of what's in your pension account. Just what's in there. If you've got a personal pension, again. If you've got a state pension, all of that, you don't need to worry. If it's a defined benefit, you're not going to be paying any zakat on previous years until the actual year that you get your actual pension. So this is now really a little bit tricky, but I'm not going to go into the full details again here. You can't go into the balance sheet of a pension. It's a fund. They're investing not just in Amazon, not just in Apple. They're not one person. It's a full fund. They're investing in probably 5 to 6 or 7 different asset classes, different companies. How are you going to check the balance sheet of every single company? It's not going to be possible. And therefore, usually we just divide pensions into one of 4 types. It's going to be equities. They've invested into equities. That's multiple companies. Amazon, every company that's on the stock market, they will be investing into different companies there. So equities, basically shares of various companies. This is the most common one. In fact, just before the gathering, I was just having a look at mine. 100% equities. That's it. That's what the pension is fully in equities. So that means when it comes to equities, you will literally be applying a proxy of 25%. So 25% of all of the equities that essentially, so 100% means all of the pension is on equities. That means that entire figure, every year, I just assume that 25% of that is the zakatable amount. That means that's not zakat I need to pay on 25%. That's the zakatable assets of my pension. Then I need to apply 2.5% to that. The other possibility is your pension is being invested in some property, some money market. These are like short-term investments that are they give you high liquidity, but very, very short liquidity, and cash. Now I'm just going to give you, for example, some guidance. On your zakat date, have a look at your pension pot and look at the pension fact sheet. Remember, not every asset in your pension scheme is zakatable, right? For myself, obviously, equities, 100%, so 25% proxy is what I'll apply. I'll assume 25% because I can't go into every company, check their balance sheet, it's going to be too long. The scholars have given 25% as a proxy. Write the amount down and then work out your zakat amount for that year. Work out the amount I should be paying and just keep a note of it. That's it. If you don't want to pay it right now, you don't need to because you've not got the money yet. But just keep a note of it. Every year you're going to keep a note of it. Every year. And every year, just so I can save myself a bit of time from the next few slides, every year when you work out your actual zakat for that pension, deduct the amount of zakat that you should have paid last year. That's your overall now. Do 2.5% of that. Then the next year, what's the amount of zakat I should be paying? Okay. What's the amount I've got there? What's the zakatable amount in the third year? Oh yeah, but I've already paid for 2 years in advance. I've already paid for year 1 and year 2. I've lost some money there. So now deduct that and then paying zakat, 2.5% of the year. I'll show you just now. Do this every year. When you finally get your money, then from the money, you need to go back to your notes and pay the zakat for all the previous years. Again, this is really long-winded, and I'm not going to go through the full thing, but just imagine a person who's got 20 years of pension payments from 20 years, and now he needs to pay for all 20 years of zakat. So this is really, really, I must have had some really long amount of time to have done this, maybe too much time. But let's just say there's a person called Luqman, he's got £40,000 currently sitting in his pension pot. He's currently 42, his pension will be available at the age of 55. He's putting money into this pot since the age of 30. When does he give zakat and how much? Again, this is really, really long, but let me just show you. Firstly, it's important for Luqman to have kept a book from 12 years ago, because that's when he started this pension plan, right? He should have worked out the zakatable assets of his pension pot every year. If not, he should definitely start now. He should definitely be doing that. 25% proxy is a good number to remember. For now, he can simply keep track of the amounts. No zakat needs to be given until he reaches 55 and gets all his money. It is better to wait. Again, I'm just saying it's better to wait. Otherwise, if you want to give your zakat from now as well on your pension, it's just less of a headache. If you want to wait because there might be some taxes involved, etc., that's fine as well. Now just have a look at this. Again, this is just ridiculous, but here we go. Right, so 2013, this was his pension. This is where he was sitting, £200. 2014, 2015, 500, 700, 1,200. Just watch the years. So this is 2026. He's sitting at £50,000 in his pension. 2027, 2028, mashallah, he gets to 300,000. Right? It's a real life story. More than this amount. So mashallah, we do have some people who are on some crazy amounts in their pension. So it's important for them to just keep a track of all this. Now he gets to the age of 55. Mashallah, he makes it. And now he's about to cash out. He's about to get at least a certain amount tax-free. So he's thinking, why not? Now, it's now 2047. Luqman's super excited. He's about to withdraw his 300,000. Obviously, there'll be some tax involved if he wants to take out the full amount. Assuming all the asset class for his pension was equities / shares, which is going to be most of the time, but I don't want to promise you, for which he would apply the proxy of 25%. How much zakat does he pay? The orange portion is the bit you need to do right now. The last two green boxes, leave them empty until you reach your pension age. So again, I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but this was the pension amount. This was the zakatable proxy, 25%, so £25 for the first year. Oh, that's zoomed in. Okay, there's no previous years. Zakat owed for this year, 63p, literally. Now, right now, you're thinking that's nothing. 63p is the zakat that he owes. The second year, I'm not going to go through the full thing, but you'll get the gist already when you look at this. He's got £200, £50 zakat he needs to pay, but he's already got to pay from last year, from the first year. So he's going to take away 63p. Therefore, his zakatable, after deducting previous year's zakat that's been owed, the actual zakatable amount he has here is £49.37. And therefore, 2.5% of that is going to be £1.23, and therefore overall he's now paying £1.86. You might think that's nothing. Why do I need to keep deducting that 63p? Remember, if it's growing by large amounts, later on you're deducting literally like £16, £47, and then at one point, you're deducting at times, here you can see £499. Here, later on, literally you're deducting £2,000, £2,700, £3,000, £4,000. So you can see you're deducting the amount you would have paid for the year earlier every time you're moving ahead to the next year. Again, if you want to avoid all of this calculation, you can just pay the full 2.5% on the 25% that you're getting in one go. But that you will be paying a lot extra without realizing. But mashallah, it's all going to a good cause and it's all zakat after the whole. So you can see that after receiving £300,000 and going through all his previous year's zakah, he will pay 12,822. But that's because he received £300,000. This is a very small amount, as you can see, and even the 12,000 can be used to give to a relative who is heavily in debt. So he can, sometimes some people get a bit worried, £12,000, myself, I've got like millions sitting in the pension, etc. But you can still give it to people who are within your family as well, as long as it's not your father, mother, son, daughter. We're coming to all that. You can give it to your brother or sister who's heavily in debt, if they qualify. In any case, if you're finding the deducting previous year's zakat too confusing, then just pay 2.5% of what you had every single year. You'll end up paying a bit more zakat, I won't lie, but the calculation will be a lot easier. Moving on now, who can you give zakat to?
Just ask a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned taxation, but you ignored taxation because someone who's getting £300 pension.
Yeah, he's going to be this, 100%.
But how do you account for the tax?
So from that 300,000, first reduce all the tax that you're having to pay. Then you start. That's your pension. Do you understand? So that's why I'm saying if you want to wait, instead of paying your pension from now, that's why you probably would wait, because you're not going to get 300,000. That's the reality. You're going to have to pay quite a decent amount in tax, probably. The key aspect to remember, so we wouldn't pay zakat on that tax. The key aspect to remember in zakat is that it is to provide ownership, tamlik. You're going to make someone an owner. And it needs to be a living person. It needs to be a human being. The transfer must not be in exchange for services. For example, there's a construction workers, they're working on your house anyway, and you're looking at them, they're like, oh, they look a bit back home, they look Iraqi or whatever, they look a bit poor, which are, just give them the zakat, and that's their payment done as well for building the house. No, that can't work. Finally, the living person must acquire possession and become owner of the portion of wealth unconditionally. There must not be any conditions involved in when you're paying zakat. The zakat can be given to a poor person, debtors, even if it is an interest-bearing loan, but it needs to be someone who is severely in debt, which we'll come to just now. Travelers, even if they have money at home, but they do not have any access to it, this is fi sabilillah. Zakat collectors, this doesn't apply today because this is only relevant to a Islamic government. Now let's have a look at, sorry, it says we discussed yes, because it's related to a different slideshow that I used to do. Here's the people that you can't give zakat to. You can't call the poor person to a feast, to a da'wah, for example, as that is not making him an owner of the food. So you can't just be like, I'll put all my zakat, we'll make a big massive da'wah and we'll invite all the poor people to come and eat. That wouldn't be good enough. You have to give them the food package, give them the food itself in their hands so they can take it away. You can't pay your zakat by forgiving a debt. So this is not a common question, but we do get it every year. Example, Zaid owes Abdullah 2,000 pounds. Abdullah needs to pay. So Abdullah is waiting for 2,000 pounds from Zaid. So he's thinking to himself, okay, this guy owes me 2,000 pounds. I need to pay 3,000 pounds in zakat anyway. So Abdullah needs to pay 3,000 pounds in zakat. He knows that Zaid owes him money. And usually, sometimes when a person is heavy in debt, he's also going to be someone who could potentially receive zakat because he's really struggling. That's probably why he asked you for money in the first place. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, why don't I just forgive him the 2,000 pounds that he needs to pay me, and then I only need to pay 1,000 pounds. We understand what you're trying to do, but that won't work. There's a way you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do something which you might say the end result is the same, but you have to do it in order to get your zakat done. Which is what you do, and this is the tick, that's the cross, this is the right way to do it. What Abdullah should do instead is, Abdullah should pay Zaid 2,000 pounds first, and then ask for him to give it back to him as repayment for his loan. And that's how you do it. You make sure your zakat gets done first, and then he pays you back. Because what if you give him the 2,000 and he thinks, you know, mashallah, I had 2,000 before, now I've got another 2,000, I'll leg it now. No, so if you're worried about that, what you do is, and this has happened, a real life situation where someone did ask about this, that how can we arrange this? So what we said to them is, so Zaid appoints someone who will collect the zakat on his behalf. Because it works out for Zaid as well, if you think about it. His debt gets done, and this guy's zakat gets done. So it's a win-win sort of situation, but we just need to get it right. So Zaid appoints someone else as his agent to collect the zakat. This is someone who Abdullah also trusts. Okay, I'll give the zakat to him. Okay, fine. So now this person, Muhammad, for example, has collected the zakat on behalf of Zaid. Muhammad collects the zakat. Now this person's zakat is done. Perfect. Now Zaid appoints him as an agent to pay off his debt to Abdullah. Muhammad pays the debt off. This guy's, Zaid's debt is finished, and this person's zakat, at least 2,000 pounds of it, has been paid. So this is the correct way of getting that done. So how do you decide if a person we can give zakat to them or not? This is very, very important. I'm going to literally just go to this chart because this will help. Just have a look at this chart. So we've got three types of people here. The first type of person is a person who needs to give zakat, and he cannot take zakat as well. He actually has to give zakat to others, and he cannot take zakat from anyone as well. What type of person is this? There's zakatable wealth, and their non-zakatable wealth beyond their personal needs. So personal needs would include stuff like, for example, a phone, a house, one car, basic amounts of, it would be based upon common practice. Anything extra you have in your house would be considered extra non-zakatable. You won't have to pay zakat on them, but they may stop you from being able to receive zakat, as you'll see in person 2. Person 1 needs to give zakat and he cannot take zakat as well, he or she. Number 2, this is a person who does not give zakat, but they also can't take zakat as well. Why? Look at their zakatable wealth. This is gold and silver, gold and silver and trade assets. They do not reach the nisab of 1,463. But their non-zakatable wealth, beyond their personal needs, so he's got an extra car, he's got, for example, an extra house, he's got maybe, some few extra things in his house that he just does not need that are quite valuable. For example, we had the example that Mufti gave of diamonds. He's got those diamonds, 50,000 pounds worth of diamonds. So now, mashallah, he's not got enough money, but he's got 50,000 pounds of diamonds. We're not going to let him go take zakat now of people so he can buy more diamonds. We're now going to say to him, your non-zakatable wealth beyond your personal needs are going above your nisab, or they're going above 1,000. So you can't take zakat, or fine, you don't need to give zakat as well. Because your zakatable assets, cash, gold and silver, and trade assets are not reaching 1,463. And this person, he does not give zakat, and he can actually take zakat as well. And this is a person who, their zakatable wealth, and this is important by the way, I forgot to mention, after deducting debt, their zakatable wealth after deducting debt does not reach the nisab. Their non-zakatable wealth beyond personal needs after deducting debt also does not reach the nisab. They can take zakat. I'll give you an example of this, but I have to be very sensitive here because some people just take this and they abuse this a little bit. We have to be a bit sensible. For example, you got a sister. I'll give you a very sensitive example, but like I said, we've got to be a bit sensitive in the sense that there will be people who will be more needy in other countries, so try to give a little bit to your relative and also give it abroad as well if you feel that that's better. Remember, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions in a hadith, this hadith is reported in Sahih ibn Khuzaymah, many others as well, that as-sadaqatu ala al-miskin, as-sadaqatu ala al-miskin sadaqah, to that effect. He says that to give sadaqah to a poor person will be sadaqah, but to give it upon a person who's a relative, who's also poor, is going to be two things: sadaqatun wa sila, sadaqah and also sila rahmi. You're maintaining family ties. So you've got a sister who's just bought a house, for example. She owes debt to loads of family members, different family members. She owes 20,000 to this person, 50,000 to this person, 15,000. Now, if you think about it, she's just bought a house. Her zakatable assets, they're probably going to be like, 20, she might even be in a minus, she might even be in just 5,000 pounds lying around, not enough to pay off her debts. So you can see, zakatable assets, 5,000 pounds, but take away the debt she's got, she's in about 70, 80,000 pounds of debt. Look at her non-zakatable wealth. That you can't count the house, that's personal needs. Can't count the car. But you've got extra clothes, etc. Even that, it might not reach the 70,000 pounds that she owes to other people. Technically, you could give your zakat to her without telling her. And this is something that can be done. And you can even, Eid usually is, by the way, why are we doing this program in Ramadan? Because usually people give their zakat in Ramadan. But if you were to, for example, on Eid day, for example, you just gave it as an Eid gift to your sister who's heavy in debt, or brother who's heavy in debt, it could work as long as obviously they do qualify to receive zakat. But you've got to be a bit sensitive on that as well. Sometimes a person is in debt because of their own reasons, because of their own faults, because of doing wrong things, etc. Then that person, by giving them the zakat, they're only going to use it in wrong ways. Then you need to think a bit carefully. Who can you not give zakat to? A rich person, anyone whose zakatable wealth beyond their personal needs after deducting their debts reaches the nisab. A non-Muslim, general welfare projects such as building wells, because they do not involve any transfer of ownership. So you can't actually give your zakat to well building, etc. The non-baligh child of a rich father, again, these are hospitals. You can't give your zakat to them unless they're going to give it to the poor patients. They're actually going to give the money to the poor. Technically, you're not allowed to give it to madrasas, but you might be thinking, well, hold on, we do chandas every year. What's happening there is those people who are coming to collect money, they are taking money off us on behalf of those poor students that are studying in madrasa in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, giving them the money, and then that money is used by those students to pay their fees. So that's how the madrasa functions. And that's why we are actually allowed to give it to madrasas that come for collections, etc. Okay, this is important. You can't give it to your parents, your spouse, your grandchildren, but you can give it to your siblings. You can give zakat to your siblings as long as they qualify. Now this is just a quick live example, and this should finish it, inshallah. All the conditions in one go. Once a Muslim, mature, sane person has had zakatable wealth, the value of which, after deducting their debts, has reached the value of nisab or above for an entire Islamic year, zakat is now fard upon them. This will be 2.5% of all the zakatable wealth that he owns and has ease of access to. You can give any item the value of which is 2.5% of your zakatable wealth. Of course, most people will give cash. So, there was this mas'ala that sometimes a person asked once, can we give kitabs to poor people? Right? Technically, your zakat will be done, even if you want to give kitabs, etc. But then the value needs to add up to the 2.5% that you need to pay. It's useful to have a zakat book that allows you to keep track. Let's just do this one example, and we should be done, inshallah. You've got 20th Ramadan, 1446. You've got a person, I think I've given the name Khadija, if I'm not mistaken, but we'll see in the example. 20th of Ramadan, 1446. A person owns the nisab, a value of £1,463 from zakatable wealth after deducting debts. I usually use a traffic light system to help people understand this, but I usually say that the amber light has come on, which means they don't need to give zakat yet, but we're going to come back to them 1 year later, and if it's the same situation, things are still going good, she's still got above the nisab, green light's going to come on, she now needs to give zakat. So zakat date started, zakat not yet fard to given. Now, if throughout the year the value of the zakat wealth drops below the nisab, so you can see this is how much she had in Ramadan, 20th of Ramadan, goes up and down, up and down, up and down. By the end of 1447, 20th of Ramadan, she's back above nisab again. What we will do is, now she has to pay zakat. A person owns the nisab, it's still found on 20th of Ramadan, 1447, the green light has come on, zakat is now fard to give. So for example, Khadija gained £5,000 on 20th of Ramadan, 1446. Her zakat date has now started as her zakatable wealth after deducting her debts is above the nisab, 1,460. The orange light, the amber light has come on, sorry. We will look again at what she has on 20th of Ramadan, 1447. We looked on 20th of Ramadan, 1447, and she has £3,000, 80 grams of gold, and 500 grams of silver with a debt of £1,000. Will the green light come on? Will she have to give zakat? So accordingly, she will go to the jewelers first. She will get her gold evaluated, whatever gold she has. How much will the jeweler pay her for the gold? That's what we will consider. She finds out 80 grams of gold. Again, that's totally a figure back then. Nowadays, it would be about £9,000 for 80 grams of gold, probably maybe more. 500 grams of silver, again, that will be much higher. The amounts have gone really high. Her current money, £3,000. Her debts, £1,000. Therefore, she will now do a calculation. And it's essentially, she's going to do 4,120, that's the gold. £310, that's the silver. Her current money, £3,000. All of that added up, what does she have? 7,430. She's now going to deduct her debt, 1,000. So if you had, for example, the tax, you would deduct your tax first. 6,430. That's her total zakatable assets. Now, her zakatable wealth, we're going to check. Does she need to pay? She does. 6,430 is above 1,463. She now has to pay zakat. The green light has come on. Accordingly, she will do, very easy, 6,430 times 0.025, or, same thing, 6,430 divided by 40, and she's going to have to pay that amount, although that calculation might be wrong as well. Is intention needed? Yes, intention is needed. Does the recipient need to know that they are receiving zakat? They don't need to know that. You can just tell them it's a gift, etc. If I paid zakat, this is a common question. I paid zakat, women ask this quite a bit. I paid zakat on my gold and jewelry last year, do I need to pay again? You do need to pay again this year, every year. That is how it works. You will pay zakat every year. Is it permissible to pay zakat? We've done this. Can zakat be given to a poor child? We've done this as well. Is a gift voucher zakatable? No, it is not. Because it's not money, gold and silver, merchandise, or livestock. Can zakat be used to fulfill the debts of a deceased person? No, because the deceased person is not capable of becoming an owner. I realized I paid extra in zakat. This is the last slide and we'll finish with this. I realized I paid extra in zakat last year. Can I consider that extra as part of this year's zakat? Yes, you can. And this is something that a person does. I do it as well myself, to be honest. Just set up a daily donation with Ummah Welfare, or whatever company or whatever charity that you're comfortable with. £1 goes out every single day. And then on your zakat date, just check how much you've already paid, and that's zakat already done. As long as you've got the intention, when you set up that £1 every day, that this is zakat. So this is something I do. I find it a bit efficient because of the fact that when your zakat date comes, you realize I've already paid a decent chunk of this. And then you can still obviously give some more because it's Ramadan, etc. So this is something that you can do. You can pay your zakat in advance, as long as on that date you do check the amount that you need to pay and you kind of balance